Today I want to talk about something in airsoft that a lot of people have not touched on too much. Everybody talks about playing in the rain, playing in the snow. And they have one common denominator. You will get wet and you'll get dirty. Because wet snow on ground, and it gets warm, that's mud. Rain during the summer on mud or on dirt becomes mud. So you're going to become wet and you're going to become muddy, dirty. All right? And everybody talks about the right shell to wear, jacket shell to wear, ponchos, the right footwear, clothes, things like that. But what I want to touch on is after the game. People don't realize that when you're coming off the airsoft field after a game, you are wet. After like a rainy day, snowy day, you are wet. You are 90% of the time muddy. Your feet, your pants, you've knelt in mud, you've like elbowed in the mud, you've fallen in the mud, mud splashed up on your back, up on your front, on your helmet, all over your gear. It's very important to decide how to get from the airsoft field back to your house. Now, this will be my opinion on what I do and suggestions that I would say people should do. Starting off, when you get off the airsoft field, you're going to take your gear off. You're going to be in your camo gear, camo BDU, top, bottom, shoes. And if you're driving yourself or if you are driving with somebody, there's quite a few things that I like to do for that particular person. And I'm going to start off with those. First thing is, if you're driving home, or even if you're just coming home, you've wore shoes all day. They might be dry. 90% of the time they might be wet. You went over the top of the boots. You stepped in a big puddle. You had to cross a stream. It's been raining all day. The water's been running down. Could get inside the top of your boots. Your feet are sore. You're tired. Things like that. So one thing that you want to keep right away is to have some kind of footwear, I'm all right, some kind of footwear and a pair of dry socks. Okay, this is basically what I take. I take a pair of sneakers and a pair of dry socks. I can sit on this is even a normal day of airsoft. It gets more pronounced on like a wet, muddy day, but on a normal day of airsoft, I will sit on the back of my car. I have a hatchback, sit on the bumper, take off my shoes, put on new socks, put on the shoes, and then I drive home. It's a heck of a lot nicer driving home with dry feet, with lighter shoes, than it is like going like an hour and a half, 2-hour drive home. Now granted, if you're only like 5 minutes from your house, 10 minutes from your house, it's up to you if you want to change your shoes or not. But for me, most of my driving is like over an hour, up to 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get home. So I want to have dry feet and maybe some kind of different footwear to drive the car. And even if I'm driving as a passenger or riding as a passenger, I want to have my feet dry. So I always bring a pair of socks and a pair of shoes. Which gets me to the next part. If it's a hot day, just normally, or if I've been out in the rain and it's cold and it's muddy, my shirt might be soaking wet or whatever. So the next thing I like to carry is another shirt. Okay, be it a sweatshirt depending on the weather, the temperature, or just a t-shirt to put on after. And like maybe have a jacket in the car or whatever, but some kind of other wear for up on top, because having that BDU on top, you might be muddy, you might be wet, things like that. So having another shirt along with good footwear to put on, you're dry on the top of your feet and you're dry on the top. Plus, if you go into places like a restaurant like we do, having BDU pants is okay, camo pants is fine if you have shoe wear and a regular top. If you go in full camo, people start looking at you a little bit. So that's another reason that I like to change. The third thing, and this is for like diehard people that are driving 2 hours away or whatever, I've come from games and knelt in mud. Even though I have knee pads on, and my shoes and everything, knelt in mud, fallen in mud, things like that, and my pants have become a mess. So a quick solution, rather than trying to bring a pair of jeans, which I could, I always bring a pair of sweats with me. Okay, along with the shoes, socks, and a top. Now I'm completely dry. Okay, granted, you know, your underwear could be wet, but I can't do much about that. So now I have a dry pants, a top, socks, and shoes. I'm completely dry. But you have all that wet gear and maybe muddy shoes. So the last thing that you got to consider is bringing at least 2 garbage bags. And I'll explain the 2 garbage bags for 2 reasons. Your gear, okay, it might be muddy, whatever, I just throw that in the back. Usually my gear is like modular, so you know I can throw it in a bag if I really want to. But the big things you want to throw in a bag are your shoes. My boots are muddy, whatever. I don't want to just throw them in the back of the car. That means the back of the car or the trunk is going to be all muddy from the shoes. So I put them in a bag. If I take off my pants and my socks and my BDU top, I put those in a separate bag, because let's say they're just wet and not muddy. I throw them in with the boots. Now they're muddy and wet. This way, if they're just wet, I throw them in one bag, put my shoes in another bag. All right. Now I've got my clothes separated from the mud and wet. And even if my clothes and everything are muddy, I still separate them. Okay. If you're a person that lives like 10 minutes from your field, there's like 5 minutes from the field. If you're driving, or if you have a ride from another person, the 2-bag solution is also very applicable. One, the first bag you put on the seat. You're going to be sitting on someone's seat. You don't want to get it all muddy. You're driving home yourself. You don't want to sit on a seat and then have to get in that same seat the next day. It'd be all mud or wet. So I put one bag down on the seat. The second bag is for the floor. Normally, if you're driving, having a bag on the floor is not going to really help because you're on the pedals. But if you're a passenger, a second bag on the floor. Sure, people have floor mats and stuff like that, but your big caked muddy boots, all right, they're going to dry a little bit on the way home, or the mud's going to get on the carpet on the side, or get big clumps of mud in there. And if you get out of the car and all that mud's in the car, that's something the driver has to clean. If you're driving and you don't put anything down, you have to clean it up so you don't get all on your clothes the next day if you're driving to work or whatever. So 2 bags, one for the floor, one for the seat, is important. If you're changing clothes, 2 bags. If you're driving home with your clothes on, wet and muddy, 2 bags as well. Okay, that's the biggest things that I usually do for after a game when you're soaking wet like that. Because driving home wet and muddy, it's very uncomfortable, and over a long period of time, it'd drive you nuts. So these are just a couple of things that I do. You can switch out whatever shoes you bring, it's up to you, or whatever. If you want to bring pants instead of a pair of sweats, I use sweats because they're lighter, easier to get on and stuff like that. And I have no modesty, so I'll just drop trowel right in the middle of the field and throw new pants on. And like I always say, if you see something you haven't seen before, let me know. Okay, so I can hear some people say, oh, I'm not going to drop trowel in the middle of the field and change out. Well, if you're all wet and sweaty, or wet and muddy, pull your pants, take your shirt off, open the door of your car, pull your pants down, sit down on the seat, and take the stuff off. You're in the car, slip the stuff on, you're good to go. So this has been my suggestions for after a game where you're wet, muddy, soaked, and you want to get out of those clothes and get home and be comfortable driving home. I hope you guys got an idea on some of the stuff. Probably some of the people have gone over this before, but this is what I like to do after the game. So this is after the game prep. All right, thanks for watching, and you guys have a good day.